We recognize that the Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society gathers on the land of the Western Abenaki people. We respect the Abenaki's spiritual relationship to the land, and we seek to honor their living traditions. We hope to learn from them how we can respect Mother Earth and each other.
Good morning, and welcome to the Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society streaming service. As members and friends of the Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society, committed to the Unitarian Universalist principles, we strive to be an inclusive and welcoming community that sustains a liberal religious tradition. We aspire to be visible and active on behalf of social justice and environmental responsibility. We nurture and empower each other at all ages on our spiritual journeys, and we reach out to the larger communities of which we are a part. My name is Jason Duquette Hoffman, and I am the worship associate for today's service, which is led by our minister, Reverend Barnaby Feeder. If you are visiting today, please send us a message to introduce yourself and be sure to join us after the service during our virtual coffee hour for good conversation and company via this Zoom meeting. After the service, all who wish to join our virtual coffee hour should stay on this Zoom meeting as Abby moves us into breakout groups. If you haven't already done so, this is the perfect time to turn off your cell phones or any other electronic devices that you are not using to stream this service or to put them into worship mode. If you have milestones and passages that you would like to have shared with the congregation during that portion of our service, please enter in the chat and we'll review those as we go along. Our service today is the product of the efforts of many people, in addition to all the support that our worship team and staff provide. Rich Wolfson was our gatherer, organizing the elements, herding the contributors, and producing our show. Richard Hopkins is our videocaster today. The time for our ladies is prepared by Poppy Reese, and Ronnie is our accompanist for today's service. Our call to worship today comes from Nobel Peace Prize laureate Dr. Wangari Maathai from Kenya, who was the first woman from the African continent to be awarded the Nobel Prize. Dr. Maathai's words and work, planting trees, promoting democracy, and working for environmental justice with economic equity, remain with us as she teaches. In the course of history, there comes a time when humanity is called to shift to a new level of consciousness, to reach a higher moral ground, a time when we have to shed our fear and give hope to each other. That time is now. No matter who or where we are, or what our capabilities, we are called to do the best we can. Every day of every week, we are sustaining this work through our connections and commitments to each other. Beyond our weekly services here, there are many pathways to connection, which are shared through our monthly newsletter and weekly emails. If you're not receiving these and you wish to, please email office@cvuus.org. As is our custom, I'm going to light a chalice to begin our worship service. I'm going to share the words on the screen if you wish to say them with me. I'll move myself out of the way. Unitarian Universalism is faith in people, hope for tomorrow's child, confidence in a continuity that spans all time. It looks not to a perfect heaven, but toward a good earth. It is respectful of the past, but not limited to it. It is trust growing and conspiracy with change. It is spiritual responsibility for a moral tomorrow. And there is no better reminder of the imperative to work toward a moral tomorrow than the children we honor in our lives. Feel free to join in at home as we honor the children in song with Poppy and Milo's wonderful rendition of Let Us Open Our Eyes.
Let us open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Let us open our minds to seek what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another. And may we walk in peace. Let us open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Let us open our minds to seek what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another. And may we walk in peace. Good morning. I'm Poppy, Director of Religious Exploration, and I have a story to share with you today. The story is called Little People, Big Dreams, Greta Thunberg. And Greta Thunberg is actually a real person. She's a real girl living in Sweden. So this is a story about someone who is real and alive, like you. There's signs, wake up, your mess, our future. Greta was a little Swedish girl who learned from her parents to turn off the lights, not to waste water, and never throw out food. 3 simple lessons for being kind to nature that most grown-ups haven't quite learned yet. She was very proud of her great-grand-uncle Svante, a brilliant scientist who, 100 years before Greta was born, made an alarming discovery The planet was warming up, and humans were the ones responsible for it. But even though adults have known this for a long time, not much has been done to change it. Every day, millions of tons of toxic gases are thrown into the air. Greta wondered what would be left of the planet when she grew up. At school, she watched a film about climate change. Most students were worried about polar bears losing their homes because of the North Pole melting. But once the film was over, everyone forgot about it, except Greta. She felt so hopeless about the future that she stopped talking. Doctors said she had selective mutism and Asperger's syndrome, which meant she would only speak and pay attention to what was really important to her. Some may have thought that these were two terrible conditions, but they ended up becoming Greta's greatest powers. They helped her to stick to her promise to do everything she could to slow down the planet's warming. Greta started by convincing her parents to give up air travel and stop eating meat. But there were dozens of other little things she could do. She knew that she couldn't stand up for something without walking the walk. She had done her homework, but it wasn't enough. To stop global warming, politicians had to do theirs too. One day, instead of going to school, Greta decided to sit quietly in front of the Swedish parliament holding a sign. Not very many people noticed her that first day, but it didn't bother Greta. She kept going with her strike every single Friday, and every time she got there, more and more students joined her. And the signs say, "Wake up, no more excuses, save our future, Fridays for future, there is no planet B." And Greta's sign in the middle says, "School strike for climate." It was time for children to wake up the adults. Soon, all over the world, thousands of students started skipping school to protest outside of their city halls, fighting for the future of the next generation. Inspired by Greta's story, millions of people from Melbourne, Australia to San Francisco, California, flooded the streets in the first world strike against global warming. It was the biggest environmental protest ever. She crossed the ocean on a wind and solar-powered boat to speak in front of world leaders. In the name of all children, Greta asked people in power to stop making up excuses and start acting before it's too late. What started with just one girl, with a handmade sign, became a movement that includes us all. Because global warming is the greatest challenge humanity will ever face. But little Greta is no longer alone. And that's a photo of her. And I want to show you one other photo. So this is another photo of her. On the left, you can see that she's sitting alone, and she has her school strike for climate sign in front of her. And this is in front of the Parliament building. So the Parliament building in Sweden is like sitting in front of the White House or sitting in front of the Capitol building, somewhere where a lot of important leaders and government people in our country are. So she hoped that they would see her and see the sign and care about it. And then on the other side of the photo, look at that. That's just one of the marches, right? A huge climate march happened all over the world on one day. There's been many marches since then, but this was the first global one, meaning it happened all over the globe. And I feel like I read that it was in at least 85 different countries had huge protests like this. So what she did started just with her, right? She was a kid. So, I think she felt, and she was probably right, like she alone couldn't make the planet stop warming up, right? She couldn't change, the way the gases were going in. She didn't have that power, the way the gases were going into the air. But she has the power to say stuff. She has the power to make signs, to sit places, to talk to her parents, to talk to other people. So she thought of something that she could actually do and did it, right? Her parents said okay and let her sit in front of this place. And for a long time, it was just her. But she was so passionate about it and she cared so much about it and she stuck to it that it ended up getting attention and media. The news covered it. More people joined her. Adults joined her. It started happening in other countries. And it turned into this thing that got an enormous amount of attention. And she ended up speaking in front of presidents and prime ministers and world leaders and spoke at the United Nations. So, what about you? What does this mean to all of us? To me, this means that I can't do everything and I can't alone change something huge because I don't have enough power. But I can speak out. I can make a sign. I can sit someplace. I can talk to someone. I could raise money to help people who are doing those things. I can draw attention to stuff. And all you kids and the adults watching, you can do that too. So for this week, what I send you out into the world to think about is, what is something you care about that you think is a problem or should be changed? Or maybe it's an idea you have for something that doesn't exist yet that we need. And then try to think of what's some small thing you can do that you do have power over, and see if you can do it. See if you could do it this week. It could be a really little thing. Maybe for the planet, it's making sure that every time we brush our teeth, we turn the water off while we're brushing, right? Get the toothbrush wet, turn the water off, brush, turn the water back on. That's just one little thing, right? It's small, but it's a thing we can do. So that's what I leave you with, is what is the thing you can do? Because we all can do something. So, my beloveds, I love you so much. Be kind to yourselves. Be kind to other people. And go make the world better. Bye.
Poppy, thanks for that message. One of the things that we can do, each of us, we do every week at CVUUS, is that we take up an offering that we share with a group that's working on things that we agree are important. And sometimes it's climate, sometimes it's other things. And all of this month, we are supporting a group called Common Ground that runs a camp not far from here in Starksboro. And Common Ground creates programs that connect families and children to nature to understand what's going on in the world better. Over the years, they vastly increased the number of scholarships they offer to people who wouldn't normally be able to afford to go to camp. And thus they bring people who would be excluded from these experiences into nature and into understanding better our relationships. And that's very much in line with what we support. So I ask you to be as generous as you're able as we take this week's offering. And also, please note that background music is supplied by our own Liam Greenwood. And I need to hear from Richard because I'm not seeing anything on the screen in terms of the offering.
Pardon for the technical difficulties. I'm having trouble sharing my screen, but it'll be up in a minute.
All right, well, while Richard's working on that, those of you who have,
I got it.
here's the cue. Thanks. Every week there are, as I said before, unspoken joys and concerns, and we do leave a silent period in our service for prayer and meditation so that everybody has the opportunity to connect with where their hearts are this morning as we move through our time of worship together. And I invite you into that space at this moment.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in awe. Keep with the web of creation your vow, giving, receiving. conscience with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now, my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
Our reading today was created by a poet named Linda France for an online book festival in England last October. France was nearing a 10-month residency devoted to climate poetry. Truly a sign of our times. Until recently, there was never such a thing as a residency devoted to climate poetry. This illustrated compilation poem called Murmuration began with an open call France sent out for submissions about people's relationship to the natural world, in which she asked everyone to complete two phrases, or at least one of the two phrases. Because I love, and what if? France wove over 500 of these responses into Murmuration, which gets its title from the collective name of massive groups of starlings that fly together in flocks that turn and dive and dip in fractions of a second as if they were a single organism. This will be an unusual morning where the sermon reading, which lasts 12 minutes, will be longer than the sermon. But I think once you listen to Murmuration and what I have to say about it, you'll agree that these proportions make sense. So I invite you into the space of Murmuration.
Because we love watching the flock's precision glide, upstroke for height, tilt of wing, spun mid-flight, just for a moment we're in the frenzied, swirling rush, home for the winged. Owls hoot their love through the dark, chiff-chaff creeps up stalks, fennel and flow, dipper and wagtail. Arctic turns like darts, geese honking, each note weighed out. A duck sits on top of the bowling club, king of the world. If you love the bird, don't cage it. We'll miss the starlings when April comes. On any high hilltop, breathing this air, this precious air, remember those who lost their breath. If you love the flower, don't pick it. A sudden sweep of daisies in a green field, like counting stars, losing count, starting over again. More shades of green than words scream life. Life, damp grass between bare toes, light passing through poppy petals, the slow unfolding of a rose. Home for the prickly, those that slither, climb or crawl, for us all, atom by atom, cell by cell, what else matters? We cherish these conversations when the vetchling speaks, the lavish eruption of nasturtiums, weaving ropes of white stems, orange flowers, lush leaves, hearts burnt open. If you love wild things, let them be. Follow the almost invisible path through the heather, summer's easy grin, the slow smile of autumn, gaze of winter starlight. Isn't this how we learn not to fear change? The seasons that mark time shape our lives. Spangles of sunlight on a river, otters rippling, the sting of cold sea on tight red skin. We feel it all, drink it in, and love it. Love honey, love bees, the smell of dust, hot rain, a damson tree dripping purple fruits. Love the kiss of a dandelion clock, windsuck, and time disappears. The pull of the moon, waves that crash with forgotten history, the rubbed edges of the world, a spider crab scurrying sideways. We love the roaring aisles, the taste of a peach. Our neighbours busy in their vegetable patch, the daylit gate, tunnel of trees, those little paths 1 person wide between hazel and ash, warm bark. In the city that birthed us, bright tufts that grow in the cracks. Because we love the way dawn wakes up and switches night to day, the twist and fall, the surging, sweeping joy of it all, the visceral thrill, how dusk strips away the waste of worried days, as birds yield to their roost and leave the night to moth and bat, beyond day, beyond everything. We know we too are rock and star. But now, on the tip of our tongue, even love's not enough. At the midnight of the year, utter darkness. 1,000,000 compasses fail, and the starlings don't come. Empty sky, no swallows, no swifts, no summer nests in the eaves, threads looped in the blue. A blackbird that isn't there opens his throat into silence, thin air, no golden note. You wake to a dawn unheralded, dusk uninvited, doesn't know where to begin. Ghost calls echo in the trees. Dogs and deer stop barking. Rain forgets to fall, its rhythm broken, lost. Oak and elm hold their breath. You will never see another flower. The stars' last vanishing act. No words left. April high tide hurls driftwood, oarweed, sea glass, a wreckage of shells. Tomorrow comes soon. How much would you pay to hear the sound of rain or birdsong? What if couldn't care less, cared more, and we let the murmur of change change our ways? Hear the roots of trees whispering, dark soils, cavernous memories, tectonic plates shift, sit like a mountain, all weathers in our hearts. What if all our flutterings become feathers? The starlings lend us their wings. till we trust enough to fly together, synchronized, one vast voice, all different, all the same, to mend our wounded earth. Ballads of continents crossed, comrades lost to storm or predator, the shockwave moving through the flock. See how we flit, twist, swell, dive, commingle, coexist, co-inhere, belong together here. Imagine we're made of those slivers of sky, know all the colours of light, can hitch a ride on the bee's flight, go to earth with badgers small as Alice, catch the worm, the keys of the ash, rise like a dandelion, the promise of a peony bud, where heather meets heaven, home. This is the patience of the albatross, a cormorant's hunger, craning for a flash of silver beneath the water, the good omen of a crescent moon, milky stars set in new stories, meadow orchids, skeins of geese, a chance to constellate honesty, justice, escape heroic fantasies, gravity's boots. So what ifs rubbed out and becomes what is, the path between, then we can hear the hiss of rain. What is more than the ear can hear or eye see? We will never have this time again, can never rewind this moment. All the maybes, all the small things we touch, gentle, curious, and let pass, like fruit in season, the secret language of earth, underland of coal, uranium, oil, indifference banished by love, power to the parliament of rooks. It's just this, us, the people, our footsteps walking into all this wonder, every day, through every weather, solidarity, the planet's rage, making a stand for a different future. It's just this, our words, building this home we share, these bridges, nowhere else to go. Here we are, turning over this tainted page to start again, and healing the earth heals us. Our better place, not a destination, a method, common ground. Ask, what if words could fly, and this poem rose into the blueness, a whir of black italic wings, breath by breath, a prayer, to give life back to life, all of us, pieces of the world. What if all the time we were searching the sky, the birds were watching for us? What if not cartwheeling? What if not care? What if not a cadence, like love held lightly?
Readings before sermons have throughout much of Western church history been brief biblical passages. They get longer in many UU worship services and can come from anywhere: daily newspapers, jokes, diaries, poems, spiritual texts from all over the world, you name it. Sometimes I've used choir pieces or hymns we sing together as readings, laying out the path toward my sermon message. But today's illustrated video of the poem Murmuration is far longer than anything I've ever used this way before. I expect some of you may have missed some of it while getting the general impression. We will send out a link to the YouTube, which you can watch with your closed captions function on. And we will post another link where you can just read the words if you want to move deeper into this reading on your own time. As I explained in introducing the reading, Murmuration is a unique collective cry of the heart about our relationship with the earth, drawn from two writing prompts, Because I Love and What If. Murmuration was inspired by observations of how mind-blowing massive flocks of starlings can be, especially as they fly toward their nighttime roost at dusk, that they can be so extraordinary that it's hard to see any individual bird, and they respond in fractions of a second to the nearest neighbors, and this thing that you've never imagined you would see on Earth can change course and block out the moon. And in response to that, applying that collective name for starlings to our climate crisis, the poet Linda France prays, "Let the murmur of change change our ways." She wants to suggest that we, not just we as individuals, like the individual starlings, but we as integral parts of all of nature and Earth itself, can become a murmur of the change we seek. Restoration of healthier relationships with the earth. Now, I use the word restoration, but in truth, we are nearing the point where what we need is better described as resurrection. I love Frances' final question. What if words could fly and this poem rose, breath by breath, a prayer to give life back to life, all of us pieces of the world? I also thought that Because I Love as a prompt was a great way to flesh out the first section of the poem. We should think a little bit more about that. Because I love, waves that crash with forgotten history was one of the phrases sent to her. And flowers and wild things, and the bird that should not be caged, and that there are more shades of green than words in the world. That all these beautiful things are also homes for prickly things. It all becomes a litany of what is at stake. She's relied, of course, not just on her own loves, but the response of this impromptu congregation of earth lovers. I believe we, as an ongoing congregation of earth lovers, could put together our own awesome list of Because We Love items. But that's for another day. Right now, I invite an amen from you to her conclusion in that first section. Beyond day, beyond everything, we know we too are rock and star. But now, on the tip of our tongue, even love's not enough. Amen. We know we are stardust from our conception, but now we know that simply talking about love is not enough. The second section of Murmuration lays out evidence of why love is not enough any longer. We've flown too close to a climate crisis, like Icarus to the sun, as Frances' respondents put it. Rain forgets to fall, its rhythm broken, lost oak and elm hold their breath. A time when the stars themselves will become invisible in our skies because of the pollution. Words like love on the tip of our tongue won't be enough, though we ourselves are stardust. It's a bitter irony. We're desperately in need of Murmuration's closing cascade of what ifs. They add up powerfully, if not smoothly, because this is anything but a smooth process. They add up to the prayer that we become part of all of life, giving a bright future back to life on this earth. Now, a good Universalist God might say, well, maybe your love isn't enough, but there is a love with a capital L in which you are held, like a starling within a murmuration of starlings. So what do we do to not be left behind? I think the answer starts with embracing truthful information. It starts with being honest with ourselves and each other about what is going on. But we need two different kinds of truth as I see it. We need just a very few shared scientific truths about what is going on, broadly speaking. And we need countless stories and emotional truths about all the little things we love, whether or not they are factually accurate from a rigorously scientific point of view. These more spiritual truths are in fact what give us the spiritual energy to stay connected with each other and what we at our best can achieve. They are the kinds of truth that help us find a way when no way is visible. And doesn't that certainly describe where we are now in our environmental crisis? Here are a few candidates I just want to throw out this morning for the necessary shared scientific truths. First, the biblical idea that humans are to have dominion over all the earth and everything that lives on it is now, as science writer Elizabeth Kolbert elegantly puts it, prophecy that has hardened into fact. Prophecy that has hardened into fact. People have directly transformed more than half the ice-free land on Earth, and indirectly half of what remains. Nature has a million ways of making us feel inconsequential at any given moment. That mini tornado in Middlebury this past week is a good example. If we were to disappear, it might not be long before most traces of our impact were gone. But the fact remains, we are, for better or worse, currently in the driver's seat with regard to life on Earth. And we have to get our minds around that truth. The millions of extinctions that are piling up all find their way back to us, not some asteroid from outer space. Our attempts at controlling, this is the second scientific point I think we all need to agree on. Our attempts at controlling our impact often create massive, unanticipated problems. I just think this is undeniable and we have to be on the same page about it. I will offer you just one example. Engineers reversed the flow of the Chicago River at the end of the 19th century to keep the growing city of Chicago from turning its Lake Michigan water supply into a disease incubating cesspool. It made sense at the time and was in fact a great feat of engineering that saved countless lives. But after decades of flowing into the Mississippi River Basin and the Gulf of Mexico, the Chicago River's connection to the major tributaries of the Mississippi emerged as a highway for invasive species of fish and mollusks and other forms of life to destroy wide swaths of the entire Great Lakes ecosystem. That drove engineers to invent electrocution zones for the Chicago River and chemical attacks and other forms of barriers to try and keep separate the two immense ecosystems covering most of our nation and large areas of Canada. Talk about our attempts at controlling our impact, creating massive unanticipated problems. This is just one example. Much of what we do to nature exacerbates various social injustices and accelerates the record rate of human-driven extinction of other species. That's the third point I would say we need to agree on. Much of what we do makes other things worse, often in ways we know it will. This isn't a matter of unanticipated consequences. The treadmill we are on requires us not only to control more and more of nature with bigger and bigger bets on new technology, but also to control our increasingly complex control systems. I have some other points that I had in my initial list, but I'm going to stop right there because I think each of us has to be aware of what's being put out there as science and to understand which things are facts that make a real difference rather than opinions about who is to blame. My point here is that as our response to the pandemic shows us, we are in greater trouble if we balk at being data-driven in our behavior toward our relationship with Earth than if we pay attention to it. And believe me, as things get worse, the flood of data coming our way about our relationship with Earth will become a tsunami. We aren't made to handle it. None of us will be able to comprehend it. So first, let's help each other find those few overarching truths we need to hang on to in order to be able to work together. This is what Unitarian Universalists mean when we affirm a responsible search for truth. But what about those emotional truths I mentioned? I think we all need our own stories on that front, just as we have different ways of understanding what some people call God. Last week, I spoke about how moved I had been by the plight of the Australian regent honeyeater. As human incursions and other circumstances reduce their population, this beautiful black, white, and yellow bird is failing to mate successfully because there aren't enough mature males around for the young successors to hear and learn the distinctive mating call. The young birds pick up snippets of birdsong from other birds instead, and the confused females avoid them. In our Zoom coffee hour after that service, Zoom coffee hour, that ever reliable source of fascinating information if you talk to enough folks, Artley Wilson told me that she had read that humans had stepped in to save the day with the regent honeyeater by putting digital recordings of their mating call out into the forest. These compassionate volunteers were going into the woods and broadcasting these mating calls to help the young males learn them. I was struck by what Artley said in a couple of ways. Part of me said, is this a fool's errand, an endless chase to try to atone for destroying the natural world by filling the holes we've made with human inventions? Or could it be that this is actually a way forward rather than a hubristic plunge into still more problems that we don't anticipate? What if, to use the words Linda France sent out to prompt her poets, what if this is what the next great life-enhancing wave of human evolution looks like? What if we manage through compassionate technology to vastly expand our capacity to instinctively identify with and serve all of life, just as those starlings in the Murmuration instinctively react to what's happening around them? What if these challenging times lead us to say, here we are, Spirit of Life, send us, rewire our minds to make serving you our greatest desire? I think that might be a good prayer for us. Rewire our minds to make serving you, Spirit of Life, our greatest desire. But each of you is going to need your own collection of stories that ring true to you as guides in that direction. Those stories, like the great truths on which we must agree, are news about Earth we can use to lead fulfilling lives. Maybe you have a different news story about why Earth is crying out for better humans than my story about the regent honeyeaters. I'm all ears. I want to hear that. Good news should be defined as that which leads us to good trouble. That is action that's risky but important, and joy, just as Greta Thunberg illustrated in how she behaved in reaction to what she had learned. Let's be a place to share lots of such news. Let CVUUS become an awesome murmur for change. And so I say to you, blessed be and amen in terms of my remarks for this morning. And I invite you to listen to Blue Boat Home, one of our favorite hymns. And notice that in honor of today and our message today, we've taken a song that's very personal and filled with lots of I's and pluralized it and put in a lot of we's and ours. I hope that you find the change thought-provoking.
Though below us we feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still our dry land heart can say, we've been sailing all our lives now, never harbor the ocean we travel, and the earth is our blue boat home. Sun our sail and moon our rudder, as we ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with our ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in a beautiful blue boat home. We give thanks to the waves upholding us, hail the great winds urging us on, greet the infinite sea before us, sing the sky a sailor's song. We were born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have we known. The wide universe is the ocean we travel, and the earth is our blue boat home.
By way of benediction, first let me thank Ronnie for agreeing to change the words and lay them out that way before us. May we go forth truly thinking of the entire earth as our home, finding all those little things that keep us in contact with that thought, that keep us in that space where the energy that brings us together to do the right thing remains strong. I think that that's something CVUUS can bring into our lives. As we get to the postlude Praise in Springtime, I just want to note that it's in our teal hymnal and we never sing it because the music is too hard for us to master with various time changes. But Ronnie's agreed to play it for us as a postlude. I invite you to enjoy Praise in Springtime.